Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Diverse Media, I would like to welcome each one of you today to our very special session on mastery and mindset as a framework for education. We are having an expert with us. I would like to just introduce him. Mr. R. Kikani. He is an entrepreneur and educationist. He is a correspondent with Kikani Group of Institutions and also a trustee at Chinmaya Mission Trust. He is a science graduate and an MBA from the United States and a passionate educationist. Thank you, Mr. Tushar, for joining us today.
Thank
I would like to also introduce Ms. Swathi Aggarwal. She is the co-founder of Prosper Theories. Prosper Theories is one of the leading assessment and career counseling company dealing with schools, HEIs, corporates, and individuals. Thank you, Ms. Swathi, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Siddharth.
So I would like to start the session for today. So, Mr. Kikani, thank you very much for joining us once again. First of all, I would like to, have your general views about the present situation that we are facing, the unprecedented situation that we are having in our country and all over the world. So, a very generic view about it, if you can just give your views on that.
Yeah, I think if you take it in a broad viewpoint, it's a kind of an economic carnage over here. I think the entire system which we have built over the years has gone completely to shambles. I mean, unprecedented things have happened all over. Nobody in the world anticipated this kind of lockdown. I mean, never in the years it has happened. And my only wishes and prayer is that we overcome this. The safety of the humanity comes first. My prayers to one and all to come out of this. We defeat the virus and we get back to our normal lives.
Yes. So, Mr. Kikani, we are having this very interesting topic today, and whenever we are talking about anything which is related to education, it becomes very, very critical and important because education is the backbone of any country. So, and today we are going to talk about something which is going to also work, towards framework for education. So, can you just take us through what exactly, when we say mastery and mindset as a framework for education? So, what exactly would you want to share with the audience, and how would you want to enlighten them?
I think mastery-based education is not a new concept. It was practiced in the medieval Europe around 100 years back. And basically, if you look at the whole word mastery, it's very self-explanatory. It is, and when you relate that to education, it means conquering the entire knowledge of that concept or a subject. And I think we use many terms: a master of science, a master of physics, master of psychology, master of chemistry. So what that master denotes is that an individual has got a 95% or 100% knowledge of the entire subject. And that's how it should be when it comes to education. But unfortunately, when it comes to school education, we don't follow that kind of a concept. And in my speech down the line, I'll explain you how that mastery can be incorporated in our school education. Because we have, as humans, and as to take these human skills forward, I think mastery is very important, and if you take like anything you do as a human being, let's say you learn karate. What do? You first start out with the white belt. Once you have mastered the white belt skills, you move to the yellow belt, and once you mastered those skills, you move to the green belt, and so on and on. And that's the case also if you take, I think, if you're trying to learn a musical instrument, you first try to learn that very basic piece. then you master that piece, then you advance to the next level, and so forth and so on. Even as a human life, when we are born, the first thing I think all of us learn is to crawl properly. And I think once you crawl properly, you learn to stand up, you learn to stand properly, then you start walking. Once you little bit master the art of walking, then you start running, and eventually you start sprinting. And that's a case of even learning. I think you start with the alphabets. You all of a sudden you can't write sentences. So once you master the alphabets, you start framing words. You start framing words, and then you start framing sentences. And everything is a step-by-step process where we master the previous thing, and then move on to the next concept, or to the next level. And that's how I feel education should be.
So, sir, it is very well said when you are saying that if you are able to master the concept, then obviously the things are very different. So, and the example that you have given of, learning karate or any such thing, such art in which you go level by level, is also something very easy to understand. So, taking this forward, so what is your kind of an expert opinion or your expert advice to the people who are there in the system, who are really working for education all the time? Since you are an educationist, you are also associated with very big organizations and institutions at a very senior positions like trustee or the correspondent. So what is your real input for the people around there?
I think over the years, I think over the last 2 decades, a lot of us, not only in India but across the globe, we have been talking so much about the ills of education. There's so much of a need to revolutionize education. There is a need to transform education totally. It's not just India, but countries around the world are feeling that way. That something drastic, something different, something new has to be done to bring the level of education up and make it more interesting, make it more student-centric, make it more oriented to the needs of the student, make it more relevant to the skills that the students like, and take it into that direction. And unfortunately, if you look at the school education system, that's not the way. And you'll be surprised that many a philosopher has said very jokingly many a times that 80% of the skills a student or a child has have been completely lost by the time he or she graduates from college. And this is the pathetic states of affair with our entire education system. So what we are looking for here is a total a revolution, a kind of a total transformation. And that can only come if it starts thinking something new, like the concept which I'm going to speak now it's pretty interesting, and I think it's very advantageous. It gives a lot of confidence to the student. It creates a mindset that anything and everything is possible if you can put it to a practical approach.
Right. So I think I would request Ms. Swathi, if you would want to ask something from sir at this moment, or we ask Mr. Tushar to take forward the discussion.
Let him take forward the discussion. Probably we would ask him after a while.
Certainly. So, sir, can we request you to take?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Mr. Siddharth sir and Swathi, for giving me this very excellent opportunity to come on your platform and talk about this beautiful novel concept of mastery as a framework in education. As I told you in my earlier this thing, that the very word mastery says that you conquer the knowledge, the entire 95% to 100% knowledge about a concept, about a subject, and then you move forward. And that's practically, we all do that in our daily life. But when you take school education into consideration, when you take the actual working of a classroom, it is very sad to say that this methodology is not followed, maybe of time constraints because of the shortness of the class duration, or maybe there is a lot of portion to be completed in the academic year, And this framework is unfortunately not used, And as I told you earlier, this is an old methodology dating back to 100 years, where it was put into use. Now, let me give you one example. I shall go back to the classroom model now. Let's assume there is a max class. Teacher teaches a topic or a concept, and the topic and the concept keeps going for weeks. They teach the advanced topics. They go to newer topics, and this keeps on going for a month, and then all of a sudden you have a test. Now, what happens on a test is a student might get 85%, another student might get 80%, there's another student who might score 75%. Now, what the test has found out is there is a 20% or a 25% or a 15% failure. There is a gap in their learning outcome. The test has shown, the test has demonstrated that even a bright student who has got a B plus doesn't know 15% of the topic or 25% of the topic. And then what happens is, even after recognizing the small failure, the small gap in the learning, the whole class then starts moving to another level, to another topic based on the previous topic. And this kind of teaching and testing and teaching and testing and keeps on going till the student starts going to the higher classes. And eventually, if you look at that, all the gaps, the small gaps, the 15% gaps, 20% gaps, start accumulating over a period of time until the student reaches the higher classes, And just giving you an example of mathematics, how the small gaps keep accumulating as the student keeps entering the higher level, There could be an algebra class which we didn't know 25%, then he could be going to the more advanced class like trigonometry, where the foundations of algebra come into use. Then from trigonometry, he could be going to calculus, where more of the foundation of trigonometry could be used in calculus. And these kinds of gaps, keep accumulating until, let's say, the student reaches the standard 8th or the 9th. And what eventually happens, suddenly, all of a sudden, when these gaps accumulate, and one fine day, the student sees an equation on the board, and he hits a wall, And then you realize that all these gaps which have been accumulated over the period of years are now showing up, and he's not able to proceed further on the equation. And now it's not that max is tough, or the student has got a B gene in his body or something like that. It's just all these gaps have developed over a period of time, and all of a sudden they all show up. The foundation is 20% weaker, 15% weaker, and the accumulation shows up over a period of time later. And then all of a sudden he hits a big wall. He can't understand, he can't understand the equation on the board. And then what happens? He slowly starts to disengage. That's what usually happens in the higher classes. All of a sudden, maths, which used to be a favorite subject, starts becoming boring, starts becoming dull, starts becoming tough, and just the interest fades away. Now, this is what practically happens, because the foundations are not addressed to whatever that 15% gap, the 20% gap was not filled at that point. And now, when at a later stage he sees it, and it creates a problem in his learning process. And I feel that at that time, this is where the mastery-based education comes into play. As soon as the gaps were identified in the initial years, as soon as the gap was identified, let's say the student didn't know 15% of the stuff, or 15% of the marks which was got wrong, the student should have viewed at that point that this is a learning opportunity. He should have taken control of the learning at that stage. He should have gone back to the drawing board. He should have gone and tried to learn that 15%, that 20% gap. He should have tried to fill in. He should have tried to master it and learn it before moving on to the next level of topic, or moving to the next concept, or before moving to the next subject. But unfortunately, he has not done it. So when a mastery-based concept, what they tell you is, once you identify that gap of 15% or 20%, just make it a point that at that very moment you put a pause in your this thing, go back and do the needed groundwork, to accumulate, to master that 15%, 20% gap. Now, critics of this can argue that in a traditional school environment, when a classroom is running at full speed with shortage of time and the portions to cover, this is not practically possible, because the teachers have to cover the portions and everything has to go forward in a fast manner. If the student has got 70%, some student might have got 65%. You can't expect the teacher to address all those gaps, like in the classroom hours, because everybody has to be given online, on demand assessments, and the different gaps for different students have to be filled differently. So, in a practical school classroom scenario, this is not possible. But what the methodology, the mastery-based concept says is, nowadays you have got technology, you've got a wonderful technology, you've got this educational tools, you've got this wonderful educational platforms, you've got this online apps, you got this Sal Khan Academy, you got this Edumi, you got this Byju's. So what we tell the students, what I would like to tell the students is, go back, go back to the drawing board, go back to your houses, try to fill in those gaps, 50%, 20%, 25%, whatever is it, with the help of these technological tools, and you could be doing this at the comfort of your home, at your own pace, at your own time, at your own whatever you call it, and at your own pace, I would say, like, do it, master that concept, that 15%, that 20% gap, that failure which you encountered in the tips, try to fill it up, try to go home, do your online learning, work out the problem over and over again, and once you have mastered it, start moving to the next topic, and that's how this mastery based approach should come into play. You master the concept and then move to the next level, and that makes learning more easier, more and then the student gets a mindset, that once he does that, he gets that confidence built up, that yes, I have mastered that concept, now I'm ready to move to the next stage, I'm ready to move to the third stage, I'm ready to move to the fourth stage. And this is the kind of mindset he starts getting into his system, and he believes, he gets a confidence, yes, I can do it with this kind of a framework of approach. It doesn't necessarily have the school to pitch in this area, the teachers can be only doing to a certain point in the classrooms, as I said, because there's limitations to the things that do. But the students needs to grab this opportunity. That 15% gap should be viewed as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to master, and he should utilize that completely at his own pace, in his house, and do online studies and fill those gap, and then come back for further studies. So that will give a reinforcement to his mind, yeah, that nothing is impossible, I can do it, and that it gives him confidence. And this is how the approach needs to come into the school environment, because a lot of the times you see that this is not being done, and you keep on moving from one step to the another, and ultimately you end up, you end up, and where something shows on the board and you're not able to understand it because all the gaps have been accumulated. And this is where I propagate, I would like tell the authorities, I would tell the school education system to follow this concept, and if you look at it, even anything is possible, let's say if you want to be a cancer specialist, like if you have decided to be a biotechnology, like a major, once you start making this kind of an approach to master the subject, I think any discipline in any area can be an interesting focus, for you to move on, you could but do whatever you want in your life, whatever life skills you have. Once you take that step by step approach, you master the first stage, you go on to the second stage. So any career opportunity that you are interested to go through, and any opportunity that you would like to pursue in your life, like if you go through this mastery kind of a based framework, the learning becomes easier, the learning becomes interesting. Your mindset tells you that no, nothing is impossible in this world. And I think time and again we keep telling all the children that all of us are born with so much innate qualities, with so much creativity and curiosity, but ultimately once you pass through the education system, the whole thing gets destroyed. But this is one framework, where we can keep that creativity, where we can keep that passion, we can keep that curiosity alive, by doing this kind of approach by doing this kind of framework, where you learn step by step, you master that, you move to the next stage. And this is what, in a brief nutshell, this whole thing is about. I know you go step by step process, and that's how life, as I told you before, we do a lot of things in life. We take it at once at a time, stage by stage. I gave you examples of the karate, the music, even words, and the human development, mastering in psychology, master of science, and all those things. You take one step at a time and you move forward, and that's how life it should be. And that's my sincere wish to all the educationists, to all the teachers, to all the governing boards, to bring in this kind of an approach. It doesn't necessarily have to be in classrooms. It could be done at the comfort of the student's home. And I think this is going to be a game changer if I think we can adopt it in the school system, in terms of a lot of things, and in terms of the whole students concept and the mindset that anything and everything is possible. You could be whatever you want once you approach your learning with this kind of a framework. And that's what I wanted to thrust today into this discussion, and
Right.
hopefully I've done it.
Yeah. So one quick question from my side before I request Miss Swati to come forward and post her questions to you. Uh, you said that the board should take the initiative. Somewhere down the line, the overall initiative needs to be taken by the institutions, and it need to be followed by the people who are associated with those institutions, and then adopted by the students. Is that the flow which is going to work in favor of having this kind of a concept introduced into schools?
Yeah, I think it should be very strictly viewed, and it should be taken forward in that manner. Schools should come forward and take interest, because invariably when you see the working of the schools, I think you must have gone through many exams. I have gone through many exams. Once you pass that exam, you realize that what was that failure, that gap which we had accumulated, whatever, let's say you scored a 90%, but what was the 10% which you did not know, which you did not understand, which ultimately forms the foundation of your next topic or your next concept or your higher learning. If you look at the whole classroom scenario, most of the time we don't dwell into that. I think you would agree with me on that. Most all of us, we just pat the student on the back, and we just keep going forward. Oh, you got a 90%, that's great. Like, other than going back and reminding ourselves that what was that 10% or that 15%, that 20% which I really did not know, what was that failure, and how can I work on that failure to bring the mastery back into my education, and to learn that and take it forward. So I think, yeah, schools, the boards, the principals, I think, and I admit that it's not practically plausible in a classroom environment, because, as I told you, the teachers have so many assignments to do. I mean, you can't be, there could be a 30 students in the class, each one will be getting a different grade. So everybody can't be given a different assignment, everybody can't be given a different question paper based on that failure rate. That's practically not possible. The student needs to grab that initiative, and the student needs to view this as an opportunity, a window of learning. So ultimately it boils down to the pressure, on the capacity, and what I would say, the student needs to take the responsibility, I think. And the schools need to push this in a bigger way. Maybe they
Right.
could start initially slowly, but ultimately this should be a pedagogical tool, for the schools to bring into play, for a very
Right.
positive learning to happen. And as you said, all the stakeholders, the principal, the teachers, the students, everybody have to play a role in this, to take this kind of a learning forward.
Yeah. So I'll now bring Swati ji back into the discussion. And Swati ji, your quick, feedback or your comment on what Tushar ji just told us, and also then I would request you to ask one or two questions which have come across your mind during this session.
Yeah, it was quite an insight into the mastery based learning, especially in the classrooms where portions have to be covered and time is limited. Now, my one question to you here, Mr. Tushar, is can you please suggest a few educational tools that the students can use to solve this problem?
Oh, you have got so many today. The online platforms are flooded with so many educational tools. You've got so many educational apps. You've got a wonderful. There are free apps. There are paid apps. And there are online educational tools. A few of them is Udemy is very good, and there is one Sal Khan, the Khan Academy, which operates out of USA. They explain the concept so wonderfully. If you look at that app, and if you go inside the app and look at the workings of the app, every problem, every mathematical problem, everything, maybe it's maths or science or anything, it's so explained beautifully in a very step by step approach. And all that the student needs to do it is not in the classroom, but once they are at home, they can log on to these educational tools, wherever they have made mistakes, just go to that problem area, and all these apps, like even Byju's is now there of late. They have come up in a very big way. They show you this methodology, how to solve problems in a very easy manner, in a step by step approach. They have videos out there. So basically, students need to just get onto these online tools and all these educational apps, and work on these problems. I mean, so many of them are there. As I said, Udemy is a very good one. Sal Khan is really beautiful. I'm a big fan of theirs because I've seen all the mathematical problems they solve. Mind-boggling. They do it in such a step-by-step process that it really gets ingrained. Even a poor student, like if he's going to follow the steps carefully and practice those sums or the experiments time and time out, I think he's going to master that subject. He need not be like see, the bottom line is the student, when he gets an 80% or a 75%, should not think that there's some kind of a B level gene in my body. I'm not a B level student, or I'm not a C level student. No, it's not like that. Everyone is capable of. Everyone has got the capacity. It's just you need the right approach. Once there is a failure that has been identified in your learning outcomes, most of the time we rush without addressing that failure. That's asymptomatic, I would say. I think we need to keep a pause at there. That failure needs to be converted into learning. And now these educational tools, are there at our disposal. All these apps which I mentioned, and there are numerous on the websites. So students can go log on to them. The difficulties, they can involve the teachers, and work out on those problems. Go rework, do it over and over again until you master the concept, until you learn the concept, and then move forward. And so the technological tool has now come very handy for the students. They need necessarily rely on the teachers in the classroom. So that's one big advantage of this mastery based education. The failure can be converted into an opportunity for big time learning.
Especially in this pandemic situation, where there is absence of tutorial classes, where there's absence of regular classes in schools and institutions, I think this would play a very major role for children to overcome to get mastery in any subjects like you had mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think it's just awesome. If you just pull out all the, let's say you go and open Sal Khan Academy, that app, it's you can download it for free. And literally, if you look at the sums that he has worked out, he has based it out of our CBSE syllabus, our NCERT syllabus. Literally, every sum is worked out in such a gentle, fine manner and displayed by terms of a video, that even a guy who is not interested, let's say, in a mathematics or a science, if he watches that video, and you would literally fall in love with it, like the way the explanations are done, the way they take you step by step. So, I mean, the students, I think maybe the awareness levels are low, but they need to log in, and master this concepts by working on this problems, by making use of all these apps, and learn it step by step. The beautiful apps. I mean, even I think all of you can go and have a look at it. The explanations are so fantastic. It's done step by step, and it's mind-boggling. I think the students need to tap it and make use of it. And even if a teacher is not teaching online nowadays, I think that the student need not depend on the teacher. If you look at these apps, like I said, they can do the learning process by themselves. Everything is so systematic. Everything is so arranged, concept-wise. Everything is so arranged in a topic-wise basis, chapter-wise basis. You can just go log in and just do the study yourself. Just the inclination, the interest needs to be there. That's about it.
No, I would 100% agree with Mr. Tushar. Even I am a very big fan of Khan Academy, and really, the way they have solved the concepts and the way they have explained the things. In fact, they are one organization which is also promoted extensively by the
I think there's a
organizers of
connection error
camp.
from Mr. Siddharth Jain's side.
No, I'm able to hear him.
Okay,
Okay,
so
probably from my
there
end.
is an organization called College Board, so which has been extensively promoting the videos being offered by the knowledge being shared by Khan Academy, and now with their office in India, even they are able to cater to a large percentage of people within India. So with that, Swati ji, would you want to ask any question, any other question that you have coming to your mind? I think Swati ji is not able to hear us. So it seems, because that is why she mentioned that there is some connectivity issue. So, sir, I think
Yeah.
the very fact which you have mentioned in your statement, saying that we need to identify where the problem area is, and then that area needs to be addressed. And if we are able to address it, then that problem area also sometimes get converted into an opportunity.
Yes.
So I think that would be a very, very positive way to look at it, from an educationist perspective as well. Because if we have educationists like you who are really able to identify opportunity out of the problem areas and especially work with the students, I think our future generations are totally sorted. So with that, I would just request you to give a closing note so that we can close the session for today, sir.
Yeah, this is one of the tools, the educational tools of learning, which could be a game changer for everybody. It brings back your interest in the subject, and it creates a lot of positivity inside you. It creates a mindset. Know that everything is possible. If I approach it in the right way, I can learn it and improve my skills. And as I said, this is any kind of skill, any kind of career option which you decide to pursue in your life, whatever you have in mind. If you are going to put this mastery based framework approach to that kind of learning, I think any skill you could be anything you want. And I think with this approach, you can imbibe into you and make learning fun, and I think progress in your life.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, sir. I'll just try to take Swati ji also in the stream in case she's able to. Swati ji, can you hear us by any chance? I think there
Yes,
was some
yes,
connectivity issue.
yeah, there was some
So we
connection.
had a closing note from
And,
Tushar.
once more, thank you, Mr. Siddharth, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I got this platform to express my views, and it's a lot time. Like in the last 6 months, 1 year, this whole concept had been running in my mind. And really, thanks to Swathi and to you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to put out my ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tushar ji, for joining us. Thank you, Swati ji, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.